Just as the angels are helping us in our process of allowing and understanding the concept of loss of identity and unification into oneness, so are the lives we experience in multiple creations of matter. So first off, we and others of our gnosis have come to one of the most valuable understandings. I am everything, you are everything, and they are everything. Angels and our other creations of our essence. What our guides have described is that they are existing everywhere all the time, that they are an essence of energy and like us can embody into different identities. Consider our own bodies. Every single cell has the information of the whole structure. Then this essence that is everywhere has all the information of all the angles and our other lives. Everywhere is the unified field, the collective consciousness. Part of our journey is also about releasing attachments and healing. Can we help ourselves heal and expand by connecting with our others? How do we go about doing that? We are one, we are many. Let's discuss how we can call that energy into our current incarnation and remember things that help us better understand why we do the things we do, who we are, and what we are capable of. Hey everybody, welcome to Andromeda 7, your celestial gateway, your channel for community support, love, knowledge, being of value to others, and just plain cool people here.
There you go.
Thought I'd mix it up just a little bit, gets a little dry, you know? Anyway, hey, welcome everybody. It's connections through multiple incarnations. In other words, we're going to be discussing past lives. We're going to be sharing the past lives that Teresa and I have a couple of lifetimes that we're going to share with you just to give you an idea of how all this works and what it's really done for us and understanding our spiritual awakening. And it's actually quite fascinating. I think it's important to know, too, that when we connect with our guides and we've got that higher consciousness connection with the guides and we're working with them, we get a lot of times they'll let us know, yep, you're on the right track, or yes, that's correct, or no, not quite. But we always seem to figure it out, and it's kind of fascinating. And we've been doing this for months and months, actually more like a couple of years, right, Teresa?
Yeah.
And we finally decided, maybe it's time to share some of this because it's really done some amazing things for us in our own lives. And, I haven't even shared this with even people who are really close to me. So this is kind of a first, but it is fascinating. And I know that you guys are going to get a big kick out of it. So anyway, Teresa, I will send it over to you, the most beautiful co-host here, and you can take it over.
Well, it's mind-blowing, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone out there had a terrific Friday.
Yeah.
I know I did. I spent the time, I finished all my fall planting and all my little pots and big pots. And
nice.
Then I forgot to label them.
Right. Well, I guess we'll see what they are when they pop up.
Yeah. If it grows this way, it's a carrot. If it grows this way, it's
yeah. Exactly.
Anyway, I forgot to label them, but I'll figure it out.
Oops. Hey, I do want to do a shout out. Just wanted to let everybody know who's in chat real quick.
Yep.
Kimba, good to have you with us. Elderberry, good to see you, brother. Cole, nice to see you. Welcome.
Welcome.
Beloved Abstract. Wonderful to see you. Sip, sip. Lucky Smith, always a pleasure. Like seeing you here. Chloe, the gal with the heart as big as a house. Glad you're here with us. Thank you for coming in. Always a pleasure. Hi, Max Vision Remote Viewing, and be sure to catch him after the show. I'm sure he's got something going on, and if not, he'll let you know when. Go,
Okay.
go. Such a pleasure. Always love seeing you in here as well. It's really good to see. It's like family in here. Hi, Posey. Good to see you as well. Wonderful and wonderful.
Hey,
And let's
Posey.
see. I think, oh, Mary
Sophia.
Mansfield. Yeah. Oh, hi, Sophia.
Sophia, what? Good
I
to
love
see you.
Sophia.
Good to see you. I didn't bug you for this one, Sophia, because I knew what you were up
Oh,
to,
she
hon.
gonna like this one,
We knew
no
what you.
doubt.
We
Yeah.
Sophia's father ascended over the
Yeah.
weekend,
Yep.
so
He got to go home.
she's
So
had a
now
lot
she's
on her
got an
plate.
advocate in
On
heaven
her
for
plate.
her. So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
we're gonna ring her in for the next one, part 2.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
All
Anyway,
right. Yep. Okay.
I'll
Cool.
let you get to it.
Well, what would you like me to show for? Well, first of all, I have to do a share screen on some of this so y'all can see what's
Okay.
going on. But first of all, let me just see what we've got lined up here that Lori was just saying. We're gonna discuss. Go ahead, Lori. Go ahead.
There's 2 lifetimes that we want to share with you. And to kind of, let's start with the Titanic. So ever since I was a kid, I was always fascinated with the Titanic. And the biggest thing about the Titanic for me was, how did that ship go down and what happened to it? And I remember playing a couple of computer games with the Titanic where you're actually on the ship. And I felt like I knew the ship. I knew where to go. I knew where to turn. It was really something. And even my family knows anything about the Titanic. I'm in it, and just curious about it and want to know more. So we connected with our guides, and also too, Teresa's very good at going into trance, and she can give me names and dates, and so we kind of play off that. So we were able to get some information on this, and this is the gentleman that we came up with, was Escott Robert Phillips, and this gentleman was a past life of mine. And he was a porter on the ship, and he was traveling with his daughter, and they were headed to New York. Yeah, and then Teresa's got all the specifics on it, but fascinating stuff. I'll let you tell that.
Well, the way this came about is, first of all, there are numerous timelines that Lori and I have both had visions of.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't see this, let me know, Lori.
Yeah, I can see it. Very good.
There's at least 17 that I've got on this list. And it just shows you in human timeline that it looks very linear. Because I've documented them all. I figured out the timelines for every time there's an essence that shows up in a given human time period. And it looks very linear. But when you start looking at some of the overlaps, like we're going to show you tonight, between different timelines, you get the feeling and you get the understanding that you're looking at more than something that's linear. You're looking at multiple concurrent dimensions that you're experiencing around the same time. And with people you know in this lifetime, people you see over and over in other lifetimes. So but it seems very linear. So she's going over here to Titanic, and the way this came about is she contacted me and sent me this photo of this guy once she did the research and said, "Does this mean anything to you?" And so I looked at his face, and I just started studying his face, and I think Sophia will relate to this. All of a sudden, there was this tingling sensation in my spine and in my left side of my head. I'm standing in my laundry room doing laundry when she's telling me this, and I'm looking at it on my cell phone, so it's not this big. And I said, those eyes, that face. And the next thing I know, bam, a vision comes across. I see the ship from a viewer's perspective, from an observation of being in a lifeboat. And the next thing I knew, there were all these women in the lifeboat with me. Everybody's crying, everybody's carrying on. The ship's going down. I see it very clearly, and I yelled out, "Father." And I said to Lori, "Oh my God, that's my father
Hmm.
on the ship." And she goes, "That's right. He had a daughter on the ship with him." Lori says, "Can you give me a name? Can you give me a name?" And I'm like, "Alice. I think my name is Alice." And that's all I could remember was Alice. I didn't know my last name. I didn't know my middle name. I just knew Alice. And
Hmm.
so I said to her, "I think my name is Alice." So she goes and pulls up this research and sends it to me, right? And
Yeah.
I'm in my laundry room, you guys. So I get this thing from her, right? And I get the information, and these are my notes of who she was, how they were related, and I remember this overwhelming sense of dread and great sorrow at my father, and I felt guilt, an extreme, intense amount of guilt. And it came to me in pieces. Later on, I had more visions of it. And I said to her, and this is before she gave me all the press releases. I said to her, I th- did. I think I went to America. I think I made it there, and lived with my uncle, or something like that.
Hmm.
And then I ended up back in England, but I don't know how. So I was getting bits and pieces of it, and didn't couldn't put the story together. So Lori just sends me um, the actual research, and if I go to, let me pull this off of here. If I go over here now, Lori, it's in our. You can show them the link.
Hmm. Yeah. If anybody wants to just check out the information, it would
This
be,
was on Alice, so
yeah, you
And
can
this, is
go here.
this
It's a
is this
public
just
record.
this is just all like people that were on the Titanic?
yeah,
Yeah. So,
Okay, you know what? I'm going to stop right there because
these
we're
were
okay.
getting to
survivors that.
something here. Okay, this is interesting because I had no idea that this was one of your past lives. We haven't talked. I had no idea you were bringing up the Titanic or anything like that.
Hmm.
So let's see how this fits with being there and now my connection with you two, since you might want to look up. I actually had a great aunt on the Titanic in the First Ladies class, Miss Elizabeth Longley,
You're
which
Ah.
is
kidding.
my great aunt. Yes, my father's mother was Longley. My dad's name is Jim Longley. My brother is Daryl Longley. And I remember seeing as a child information and like menus from the Titanic and things like that. But she was
Hmm.
on the Titanic. So I don't know wherever you look this up, Lori, to confirm or not. But if
These
you want to look
records
up
are
the passenger list, that
crew
she's on
list.
there.
This is
Yeah,
the
crew
past.
chief.
This is the
Yeah.
crew list of it. These are the people that passed away. Um,
Okay, so go into
that's
the crew list, and can you just
Yep,
put her name in then and verify
yep,
what I just
and
said?
we can do that. So this is
Yeah,
interesting to me because that means
because
you have DNA from that relative
Wow.
that you had, which means a lot of your genetic information is carried through lifetime after lifetime, even your memories. Um,
oh yeah,
so
that's why I'm
yeah,
bringing it up. And
yeah,
interesting that here you're talking
very
about
cool
having,
correlation. Hmm.
you know, when
Lifted onto the Carpathia. That's an Eastern
when I
European
had a
connection.
actual relative on it,
Yeah,
where
that's
they're not
amazing.
even like,
I
yeah,
wasn't
with you
expecting
guys,
that.
it's you. What? No, neither was I. Where you're
Wow.
remembering past lives, where I actually have a relative on there, so you can look it up, Elizabeth Longley.
Yeah, perfect. I
You
will. I
want
Did
will
you
to put
write
it
check
it
in?
that
down?
out.
Did you jot
Yes,
that
I
down?
did. Yeah, I sure
Okay.
did, and I
Now
will
remember,
look
I
it up.
said I thought I was with my uncle. Well, here it says Alice ultimately met at Pier 54 by her uncle, who took her to his home in New Brighton.
Which was my brother, and that's where we were headed, you and I,
Hmm.
Oh,
and you as my
and
daughter.
okay, and I grew up in Brighton.
Oh my God.
Wow.
No, I'm serious. No, I've
Are
been in
you
Brighton. I spent a lot of
freaking?
Wow.
time. I no, I spent
Please.
most of my childhood in Brighton.
This is
What
nuts.
a trip.
That's crazy.
See?
Okay.
Can't
And
make
What
this
there,
shit
else?
up.
she has a letter here that she's writing to a cousin, and she's describing what happened, and how she heard the noise, and it was a loud booming sound, and she didn't know what was going on, so she had got so. I remember being on a deck, and I remember trying to get to my father. He had asked me if I wanted to hang out with him, And I remember later I was out there with him, but I don't remember actually how I got onto any kind of a lifeboat. But she actually tells the story of how she got on there and how she was thrown into this lifeboat, and how she watched it go down. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of it clicks with the visions I was getting. But when I get these visions, it's not like I'm sitting there watching a movie screening, seeing a whole story. I
You
get
just
images,
bits and pieces, and then we
like
gotta,
fragments you have to
yeah,
put
gotta put them
together
together.
as
Mhm.
best you can. And
Yeah,
sometimes the information that we research backs me up 100%. It fills it
right,
in. And then once it's filled in, the memory will come back full force, but not always. But
right.
so let me get out of this one.
Well, that's
Oh,
interesting. The only thing I can say with the connection to that is actually one of my fears, I guess you could call, not that I do, but would be on a ship and the ship going down in the ocean. And I've had that dreams of that
mm-hmm,
happening to
mm-hmm.
me
Yeah,
and drowning. And
yep.
that I carry. I
So
have
All
that
right,
fear. I never really
so
connected about
I
whether
can,
it's the Titanic or not, but just
yeah,
that you're talking about it, and that's one of my weird fears. I wouldn't
yeah.
want to die that way than anything, to be in the ocean in
So
a storm and drown in a ship.
I
So,
remember actually dying, so I can tell you a little bit about it. So of course, everyone's saying how the ship was unsinkable. Everybody had this false sense of security. And when all this stuff started happening, most people just couldn't believe it. They didn't believe it until it was actually going down. Of course, the water was freezing cold, but it was besides being like just like your skin feeling like needles and the shock of going into that cold water. It
mhm.
was actually a pretty easy death because it you just kind of faded out. You just lost consciousness. So it was a peaceful death. I love the water, but I don't like deep water. Deep water freaks me out. I don't want to be on a big boat out in the middle of the ocean. No, thank you. I don't want to be on a cruise or any of that stuff. And that's one of my deals, one of the fears of that, and that carried through that this lifetime. They did find out later that the Titanic sank because of a coal fire that was existing, and it degraded the metal. And when it hit that cold water, and then it hit the iceberg, that's what caused the damage, irreversible damage, and it was 70% degraded. And of course, they used cheap slag, and that contributed to it. So I finally got the answer to those questions, even though in spirit, I'm sure I was enlightened quite quickly as to what was going on. But when we come into this lifetime, we don't have that memory. So we still have that longing to kind of figure this out.
Hmm.
But it really was mind blowing for me. It was mind blowing for her. And then when we started getting all this substantiating material and information, it just blew our minds. Yeah.
Well, there's something else here now.
Mhm.
We're getting ready to. This is even more of a mind blower. Look at these dates over here on the right hand side, if you could see them. This is the. Whoops. Let me make that a little bit bigger.
Mhm.
See if I can pull this over a little bit.
Yeah. Pull it all the way over if you could to that corner.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. And let me pull this out
There
a
you
little
go.
bit. Okay. I don't know what happened there. Okay.
There.
All right. So look at this date. Now, the Titanic. Now, the articles go on to show that his daughter Alice, because I remember having a husband and I remember being sick, and that's all I remember.
Mhm.
So I went back to England. I do remember that. So I don't know how long I was with my father, but if you read the article, it will tell you. And then apparently there are two accounts of my death, of Alice's death. One account says she died in 1916. This is important, folks.
Mhm.
It said she died in 1916. Another article said she died in 1923. So history shows two dates for her death. I had another incarnation. I showed up as a nurse at Normandy Beach, and I went down on a ship and drowned, just like my father did on the Titanic. I came back as a different person, and I died in 1944. But look at the date, 1917.
Mhm.
So I had this vision of drowning on a ship in 1944. And when we did the research, we found out that this person was born in 1917, only a year after she passed away in England. So I'll tell, and if she did die in 1923, it shows an overlap in the time period.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a lot of these. We're only sharing this with you tonight. I've got about 19 of these documented, of which 2 or 3 overlap
Mm-hmm.
to show that multidimensional aspect of being an essence in more than one reality at one time.
That's right.
But this could either be because the historians just got it wrong and it's still linear, or it could be one of those examples of an overlapping timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But the story behind it is fascinating. And it means a lot in terms of how do you heal yourself by understanding what these lives are. What does this mean? On the Titanic, Alice was 22 years old. She kind of nudged her father to do something after the mom had died. She wanted opportunities. He wanted opportunities. So she kind of nudged him, and he wanted the best for her. And that's why they decided to go to America to join his brother's family. Well, when he went down on that ship, I felt all the emotions that she felt. And I'm here to tell you that at that time, I felt guilt for not being able to be with him, and I felt guilt for being there in the first place. So I needed to clear that up, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because I came back into England as a nurse in the Royal Nurses Force. And I called Lori and I said, I'm having a vision right now of just mayhem and madness in the middle of World War II. She goes, where are you? And I said, I'm in France. And I'm being bombed. We're being bombed by Germans. She says, what are you doing? I said, I'm in a hospital.
Man.
I'm in a hospital and I'm working with soldiers and we're putting them back together. And we're being bombed the whole time by the Germans. And we started breaking up our equipment, shredding our papers, setting fire to the hospital. We were getting the heck out of Dodge, is what we were doing. And we didn't want the enemy to find anything, so we started mayhem and madness. I said, it's very disturbing. And the next vision I got, I said, oh my God, I'm on a ship. And Lori's like, where are you? What? And I'm like, I'm on Normandy Beach. I just landed in a great big barge with metal equipment to set up a triage unit. And I see people all running around putting together these tents. And there's tent after tent after tent, stretchers, and there was bombs going off and all kinds of explosions. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm on Normandy Beach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Normandy Beach. The next vision I had was on a ship off of Normandy,
Mm-hmm.
transporting these soldiers from Normandy Beach, trying to get them back to England for medical care.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on a ship with a person who I see in the vision as my sister. Lori says, do you have a name? I said, people are calling me Mol. Mole or Mol? Mol, M-O-L. And then my sister's with me. Her name is Dot. I call her Dot. And it turns out she wasn't my real sister, but
not a biological sister, but a sister in helping.
Yeah.
Yeah, a nurse as well.
So then Lori wanted the name of a ship. Well, actually, we started researching the medical stuff first, the stuff about France, and
Right.
and then we started researching Normandy Beach, and we found. You're not going to believe what we found. Let me bring it up.
Yeah, show them.
Let me bring it up. It's pretty incredible.
So don't
This
tell
is
me
strange
you have.
because this is strange because I was going to say before we even brought this up, don't tell me the next thing is going to be about France.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Oh,
come
boy.
on.
Yeah, because you were born in France.
I should have just said it because I was born in France. So
Wow.
No freaking
I have
way.
so many
Whoops, that's
memories of
Titanic. I
France,
didn't want to
especially
look at it.
near the German border,
Molly
near
won.
Metz, where I was born. And so I have so many visions and stuff about France. especially I was baptized in Joan of Arc Cathedral there for Joan of Arc, and I've had other people do past lives with me, and many times I've taken back into that period and was there during Joan of Arc's time and during the fighting and everything with a brother
Wow.
whose name was John at the time in France. And it's interesting because during that time I was killed by knives and using knives, and to this day I hate knives.
Oh my
See,
God.
again, two things I don't like. So I really don't. I don't like sharp knives.
Yeah, and if
And it
you've
had to
ever
do-
been cut with a knife,
had to do. I was, and
it's
it had to do
painful.
with that
Oh,
life in France, that particular
God.
one with my
Yeah.
brother and
All right.
fighting during the time of Joan of Arc, being in that time in battles.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Yeah.
You want to
All
show
right.
the ship, because the
Oh,
ship is
strange.
really what we got. That's what we decided on, because you gave me kind of part of the name of the ship. You couldn't really come up with it.
Oh, look at the pictures of the two nurses here.
Yeah, hang on a second.
Yeah, so
This
start
is
with
the
the
ship.
ship. Yeah.
Okay, so when Lori was asking me about the name of the ship, I kept saying Amerdan, Amber, Amster. I just came up with all these things that sounded like, and I finally said maybe it was Amsterdam. She's doing all this research on records for naval ships during the war, but she was in the U.S. Navy Department. I said, no, this has got to be British.
British.
So she searches the British records and finds the SS Amsterdam. Okay? And that's the ship that apparently I went down on, but we still didn't know if that was true or not. And I said, oh my God, that's my ship. Right?
Right.
So we pull that over to the side, and I had described to her the 407. I said, I feel like I'm on MASH 4077. It seems like that to me.
A MASH unit, yeah, where you're taking care of.
So she finds this photo. And by the way, it turns out, people, that that's me.
Yep.
She finds this photo, and I'm like, oh my God, this is all true. I'm not making this up. This is really happening. Oh my God, right? So I pulled that over, and she sends me this article, and she said, what was your name again? I said, all I'm getting is Maul and my sister Dot. Okay? So this is Molly Evershed. Molly Evershed. This is her friend and co-nurse who they were called sisters in this. Their formal titles are Sister Molly Evershed, as if they're nuns or something, but it's just the way they did it in the British force. And this is Dorothy.
Or Dot.
This is Dorothy, and I called her Dot, exactly. So I started crying because I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was, and I had these visions of drowning on that ship with her. So it turns out, and Lori can show you the link for the memorial, Evershed Memorial. And I'll show you just real quick the rough notes. Okay, let me get that out of the way. Sorry, you guys. Try to do multiple things here. Here we go. So this division had started, you guys. I was horseback riding somewhere in England on an estate, jumping hedges. Lori goes, what? I said, I think I'm rich. I think I'm from a wealthy family. We have horses. We're jumping horses. But I don't know how rich we are, but I ended up I saw myself in military school, training as a nurse. Here's all my notes: bombing in France, everything I just told you about, setting up a MASH unit, and Dot and Mole. So these were my notes about my visions. Lori comes back and finds this article. Did you do a share on that, Lori?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just get that out of the way. Pull it up. And Nurse Normandy.
Yeah, we've got that.
You got that?
Yeah.
I'm putting it into a browser.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Hold on just a second. Okay, so we don't want Alice Louise Phillips. We want this one. Okay. Here we go. So she looks up the records, And recognition for the last Norwich trained nurse who drowned. This is her entire story. It validates every single thing I saw in that vision and then some. These are photographs released by her family in preparation for an annual memorial service. It says here, Sister Molly Evershed, 27, and her colleague, Sister Dorothy Field. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Were serving in the Queen Alexandria's Imperial Military Nursing Service. And they were heroes, apparently. They were saving, 70-some men on the ship?
They actually saved them. They pulled 70 guys out of the ship and saved them. Mm-hmm.
Here it is. Right here.
Yeah, both Molly and Dorothy had helped care for huge numbers of terribly injured men who had been caught in the fighting which raged after June 6, 1944 D-Day as part of Operation Overlord, which was the beginning of the end of World War II.
Okay, so, now I thought that we had been bombed because below decks you heard this huge explosion and the whole ship just shook, and we were trying to get the men out, and I was trapped and she was trapped, and I told her to go because she could make it through the doorway at the time and I couldn't. She wouldn't leave me. She was very protective of me. That's why I thought she was my real sister. And it wasn't a bomb. The ship had run into some mines, right, Lori?
Water mines, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was close.
Yeah, yeah. Which it broke apart from underneath. It split the ship in half, basically.
Right here, yeah.
And it went down.
So, and then the last thing I remember is trying to get out the window, but I didn't think it was a window. I thought it was some kind of a hatch. In my vision, it looked like a hatch I was trying to get through. And then you have to realize that windows on those things were shaped like portals, like hatches. So that's why I thought I was trying to get out a hatch. Mm-hmm. So you see how you don't get details, you get glimpses of things, but when you start reading it, and it's like right here, it said that the last person to see me was a shipmate who saw me trying to climb out a portal on the ship. So that matches up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest is here is about Dot, Sister Dorothy Anita Field, matron at the age of 32, and it tells about her as well. So the two women ended up on a memorial that's now in a park.
Honored. Mm-hmm.
And honored. And there's recordings of the ceremony to honor them and what they were about and who they were. And these are just pictures of her that her family has given to the memorial. She's short hair, nursing. Yeah. But you know what's interesting? There she is.
There you are.
What's interesting about this is that, let me close that out. No, I don't want to do that because I'm afraid I'll leave StreamYard. I want to stop the screen share, I guess. The other Dot, if you saw that person on the left, she kind of looks like me with the round face and the dark eyes. And I said, oh, maybe I've got the wrong. Maybe I'm seeing things through Dot's eyes because genetically we look a lot alike, but can't make that leap.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so that's just to give you an idea of how we go about. There's one more, and then I'm sure Dalibor and Brian have some too.
Yes.
There's one more that's kind of fascinating, and this is about. There's another timeline that overlaps where we're both. Right now, today, I live in Maryland and Lori lives in Nevada. So we're east and west as far as we can get. Nevada, right. Sorry. So we're about as far apart as we can get, right? Well, apparently during the Civil War, there's an overlap where we're both in the same time period, but we don't know each other. And she's serving for the North and I'm serving for the South. She becomes a brigadier general. I become a lieutenant. But it's kind of interesting, isn't it, that we're both in the same timeline?
Well, yeah, and in that timeline, you came up with the name, and I was able to find the name, and it blew my mind. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. I was like, "What? What the hell is happening here?"
Yeah.
And it's so mind bending. It's like it just bends your mind like a pretzel, and you're like,
Uh-huh.
it's so much to absorb, but it's fascinating. And
But Lori has another one that's equally fascinating. Is it the same? The Civil War, Carlton?
yes, yes.
So there's James Henry Carlton.
So you came up with the name, and I'm like,
Mhm.
what's my name? And you're basically, you're in trance, your head's back, you're giving me the info, I'm writing it down, and she gives me this name. And she had a hard time with the last name because
Yes.
Carleton, she couldn't.
I said charlatan, Carlton.
Yeah, it was, yeah,
Carlton.
so many variations.
And then I finally came up with, I said, no, Lori, and she gave me a name, and I said, no, that sounds French. This is, and I said, this is Carleton. It's like Carleton. Try Carleton, and that's what she came up with.
And then Pay Dirt, that just was
yeah.
like, wow.
This is her research, and she went to Wikipedia on this one, and then there's another one called Barracks, which if I bring that one up, Carlton 3, it's drumbarracks.org.
Yeah, and there's a bio on him. I mean, it just has all his information, his wives, his children, what kind of guy he was, all kinds of stuff.
But here's the interesting part. You see these eyes, you see this face. There's another lifetime where Lori incarnated as somebody who looks just like this.
Yeah, like it's uncanny.
It's the resemblance is uncanny to one from Greece. The one in Greece.
Yeah.
And it was in 300 some BC. This is 80.
Right.
But it just goes to show that we keep seeing that pattern too, you all. We see physical characteristics that even though our current embodiment is the way, it has certain characteristics or features.
Things stick with you lifetime after lifetime. Once you acquire those abilities and gifts and talents, as Jules would say, you carry that over. It just sticks with you. And
see, that's the thing. It's a lot you remember like the key points. You're not going to remember every single second of that life. It's just like, in this life, how much do you remember from sophomore year U.S. history? You only remember the key points, the important stuff.
Right.
He had, if you read the records, see his eye, he has damage, and Lori has appeared in 3 or 4 different emanations or incarnations at different time periods with that same eye condition.
I've either lost an eye or I can't see out of it.
And the facial features are just remarkably the same. And it turns out when you read his description of his character, he had very much the same temperament and character. So the question is why do we keep living the same type of characters? Oh, and that's another thing I wanted to show you. One more thing, because it does have to do with this question. And that is one of the patterns that we've noticed in the timeline is that there are the same type of roles played. I have something like 7 or 8 where I was either a priestess or a shaman or a priest. I also have healthcare, healing, and community service type work. All my life in this lifetime too. So if I'm trying to experience new things, why do I keep showing up experiencing similar things in almost every single one of these timelines?
Because we're in a simulation. We're in scripts. We're in a holographic matrix type and computer environment. So that's why the scripts are all the same, but with each one there's variations or slightly variations to it, right? Same with each of your manifestations of each fractal of yourself, right? There's going to be similarities including physical attributes with each of your lives that are happening even all at once together, but there's an overlap, right? And we have access to all of that, we do have access to that depending how you access that information, right? So, but that's why it's the same. That's why the scripts are the same with only different little slightly variances.
And I would contend that because of the multi-dimensional nature of this matrix that we're living in, or this simulation, that you could be living in more than one place at one time.
Absolutely, I
Because
believe that.
I've moved between the U.S. and Europe. I think what is it? Once, twice, three, four, five, 6 times already. All right, and there's people that I know in the U.S. that have like an exact counterpart somewhere in Europe, and vice versa, which is creepy because there's not only the same exact appearance, but the same exact character, the same voice, same everything. Just that the name is different and they don't know each other. So that almost makes me wonder, like, is it the same soul? It's just in two different bodies, living two different lives on two different continents, where the Matrix assumes that these two lives will never intersect.
Well, I
Just the
wonder. You
facet.
know what I got actually? Those particular, where there's this maybe is, are they like, we talk about having walk-ins or non-player characters and all of that kind of thing within Matrix or simulation. So maybe that's an indication of somebody exactly the same. Maybe that's it, because it's they're different. They're not
Yeah.
human or something different about them. They're
Lucky,
just a character, maybe.
right.
He's
Lucky Smith.
asking.
Yeah. What does fractal mean? I'm
A
confused at this.
fractal means any kind of pattern that's generated from a simple algorithm that's self-repeating from the micro level to the macro level, which means no matter how much you break it down, it's still the same pattern because it's created by the same equation.
Yeah, so it's basically a hologram, all right? It's the same type of
Yeah.
thing. It's a fractal, right? A hologram. It's so
Mhm.
meaning it's like you say, we're part of the collective, so we're all the same, even though we're fractal out there. We
Well,
have
it's different. It's different than the concept of fragmented. Fragment
Yes,
suggests shattered.
yes,
Fragmented
yes.
suggests you're not a whole part, and
That's
that you're
right.
separate
So
from a whole.
that's right. So you have a picture, and if it fragments into different pieces, but those
Yeah.
pieces aren't also an image of the whole, like a fractal or a hologram.
Right.
Brian, have you ever
Yes.
experienced anything like this? Do you have any concept of a past life, or have anything popped up for you? I'm really curious about you.
Yes. I've actually fought in 3 wars. There was a war in Russia back in early 1400s. There was another one. I'll talk about that one here in a second. And then I also fought in World War II. But this last one that I had done with my regression, it was a past life with my dad, and he was a general. And basically, he was wanting me to follow in his footsteps. Same way at this lifetime, he got into sales, wanted me to follow in his footsteps. I actually took the other course and get on the other side of home remodeling. But basically,
have you ever been able
I really
to? I'm sorry. Have you ever been able to validate any of this by looking any of this stuff up? War records?
Not yet.
Okay.
I just learned about this recent one.
And how did you go
this was
about
back in
obtaining the information? How did you obtain your information? What's your knowing?
I actually go through Jim.
Okay.
I use Jim for my past life regressions.
Perfect.
So,
and he would be the
I
perfect
know
person
he
to
is.
do it. Yes, absolutely,
Correct.
he would.
He's really
Yes.
reliable.
Yeah. Okay. So fascinating. So what I'm trying to get at is people are going to wonder, how do we do this for ourselves? How do I know? Well, you start with things that interest you. For me, Titanic, anything about Titanic. I don't care anything about Titanic. And I'm in it to win it, right? So if you're being drawn to a time or a situation, you might want to look at that first. That's all I was saying.
Yes.
Well, see,
I do know I've had a past life in Sumer. So I know, I haven't regressed back to them, but I have asked a few questions about the time that I was in Sumer. Never was shown any visions.
Mm-hmm.
So
and most of
I
us have
am
had
still waiting for that
thousands
day.
and thousands upon thousands of lifetimes because we just keep
Absolutely.
cycling back through and going through it and redoing it, forgetting, living a life, going through it, dying, passing on, going back, figuring out what you're going to do next. And it's just a repetitive cycle that keeps
Yeah.
going.
And some people will say to me, like, how do you know? Like, I don't know if I've even had a past life because I don't know. I get dreams, but I just assume they're fantasies. How do I know? I said, are you attracted to anything? Like, for me, the mists of Avalon, the stories of King Arthur, the stories of the Druids and the Celts. I've got every book ever written on the Celts. I've got every book ever written on Scotland and Ireland. You know, it's in my
I
blood.
would
I'm an
well,
Irish blood. You know.
see, but
Yep.
I would say it usually goes beyond something as prosaic as an interest in a particular historical event. It's more, it transmits itself into your current life in things that are decidedly unusual for your station in life. Like, for example, if you have a unique propensity to want to sleep on a bed of nails,
Yeah.
that's something unusual, and that's
Yeah.
something
Maybe
but
you are a
not
Hindu
something.
guy.
Exactly. Something that's
Yeah.
really weird, off the wall, but not
Yeah.
something, I've always been interested in the Civil War, stuff like that. That's
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
vague and
Well,
ordinary.
I was trying to get to a
And
point there.
especially main topics, like you're talking about main events, and the ones that you're talking about, the
Yeah.
people are always gravitate to
Yeah,
those
the
main
ones that
that are
stick with you.
wars or main things.
I was trying to get to a point though, and that is that I have that drive, and I have it because of my DNA, because I've got over 3/4 of Anglo-Saxon. I'm half Irish. I'm a quarter English and Scottish, and I have a slightly less than quarter Italian. But I have this drive for everything that's Ireland, everything that's Scotland, from jewelry to art to music, everything.
Mhm.
And so now I'm more awake, more open. The past few years, I've had visions of having roles in those places. Now, am I fantasizing? You could say that. You might say that. But what I found, and Lori, you can't make this up, what I have found in my research, so I got a hold of my cousins. Okay. They do family tree research, Karen.
Oh, yeah.
And some of them have been overseas and visited these places. And so if you look at the Druid time period that I'm so fascinated with and keep having visions about, there's one here. Okay, 2400 BC. So it's a broad range time period because Druids were everywhere. Okay, but they don't have any real documentation to prove anything. So it turns out that in Seymour was a Druid priestess in Somerset, England. Okay. Glastonbury Tor location, which is a mystical site of Avalon.
Mm-hmm.
Married. Now this is my ancestor. Married into the Twilly clan from Wiltshire in Amesbury, which is just 2 miles east of Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
Okay.
Good Lord.
Now on my mom's side, my cousin. Okay, but my grandmother was one of 17. The Vaughan family. Okay, and so we have Margaret, Anne, all these names are in the Vaughan family. Anne Margaret, okay? Because my vision was of Anna May or Anne Margaret. Anne Margaret Vaughan was a priestess in Ireland, clans of the Vaughans and Browns, that's Browns, from County Cork near Glendora, which is the site of the Bromberg Stone Circle, known as the Druid Altar. The Druid's Altar, okay?
Mm-hmm.
My paternal grandfather was Samuel Seymour. My maternal grandmother was Anna May Vaughan. All right, and her sister was Margaret Vaughan. So there you go, Anne Margaret Vaughan. Now this is in 2400 BC, and in my current incarnation, these are my DNA and my family
Your lineage.
goes all the way back to
Right.
yeah,
Which would corroborate the DNA, that it's done through DNA, the memory of the
Right.
souls done through
right.
the DNA, the blood.
So I'm going to close this
bloodline.
Yeah, really interesting place names there, because I'm
That's
sure
interesting.
if Mandy was here, she would be pointing out the interesting fact that there's two Glastonburys. There's one in England, which you pointed
Uh,
out,
mhm.
and which is near Stonehenge. There's one in Connecticut, and both are mystical places, and both are known
Yeah.
for their large amount of
Is
pegmatites.
that script, Karen?
Pegmatites,
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
no,
is like
exactly.
like
Mhm.
beryllium and stuff like
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
So that ties in.
Yep. And I even had one there in the Mayan timeline where I recognized Karen. Karen, I don't know if you know it, but you were a Mayan. And so was
Def
Lori.
Oh, definitely. Actually, for me, Mayan was an earlier incarnation there, actually,
Mm-hmm.
back in the time, because I was actually back in the Toltec time more
Yes, between
than the
1500.
Mayan, which is
Mm-hmm.
and even studied as a Toltec to in part of a party in this
Yep.
lifetime. But it's interesting you say that, because I actually had 25 years ago, I guess. I was going to the jungle, actually, and I was going to Central America. But before I went, I happened to, there was a sleeping prophet named Don, and his wife's name was Jean, Don and Jean. And they were quite old at the time, because I was only, in my 30s when I was going, and they're already like about 60 or so in their 60s. And they were from the States too, but they were coming to Canada, and they were tied into one of my teachers at the time, a woman who was a master astrologer and stuff. But anyways, they did he used to sleep like Edgar Casey, and it was
Mm-hmm.
really interesting that he was like this hillbilly redneck guy that when you talk to him, because we went out to dinner at first, and we just sat talking to this Don and Jean, and I'm serious, they didn't have vocabulary. They were they had these really southern accents. They, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, they were just rednecks. Like I don't mean to, you know what I mean. And they even
Mm-hmm.
admitted it, like when they're so then we go to the hotel they're staying at, and Don prepares himself and falls asleep. And, Gene records it, and you're sitting, you have your whatever. I didn't really have any questions. You could. But it was the strangest thing that when this man fell asleep, all of a sudden he talked in this old English vocabulary. He completely changed. You wouldn't even, his voice was different.
Demeanor and everything, huh?
Everything. And he
Mm-hmm.
was sleeping, and his vocabulary, oh my God, it's like it wasn't even the same person at all. There's no way.
Mm.
So he was sleeping the whole time, and all of a sudden he started telling me about um, I did 7 sojourns, that's what he called them, or lifetimes with Quetzalcoatl, like
Ah,
myself,
okay.
during
Okay.
the
Okay.
period with
Mhm.
Quetzalcoatl himself. And during that whole period, and was a Toltec, and told me about all my lives then, and that my sojourns there, and got right into the details. And no wonder. And then I ended up, of course, in Central America, and
Mm-hmm.
tying into the culture and up in the whole thing. It's going
Mhm.
to be a book that I'm doing right now,
Ah, I
and
love
part of
that.
the story
Oh,
of
We could
I
write
wow.
a
know.
book.
Yeah, we
No,
could.
really.
We
And
really could. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I mean, told me all about my past lives that I had did in Central America, and most of them were right on, and to the point where in this life I actually had gone there and did some, important work in the jungles, and with the Baruca tribe in Central America, and I had gone to reintroduce crystal carving, because they were carvers and they did it with wood and different things, and yeah, I
mm-hmm.
did like all kinds of these things in the jungle when I was
Wow,
there.
that's
So it
fascinating.
really tied in. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just crazy.
So it's
So
interesting that souls seem to travel together, that, and I like to call them soul families, because they're they're souls that have worked with other souls, and they built that trust with each other.
Hmm.
And I think that we come back in each lifetime, and we agree to work with each other before we come into the lifetime.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I
And
mean,
so I
see,
think you guys
Most
are part of
definitely.
that soul family. Yeah, because we trust each other.
everybody
Hmm.
in your circle is a member of your soul
There
family, and
you
it's pretty
go.
big. See,
Hmm.
that's the thing. I've always believed in past lives and
Hmm.
reincarnation, even back when I was still officially a Christian.
Yeah,
Because intuitively you feel that it must be so, because there's so much
absolutely.
anecdotal evidence, and I've never had an interest in pursuing this up until in 2011 when I had a stroke. And that's when I kind of became more interested, and I had myself professionally regressed twice.
Wow.
And in so far, I only know about four different past lives. Three of them, I was a male, and in one of them, I was a female, which is
Hmm.
interesting because they say the soul has no gender. But from what I'm hearing from the other
It's the
people,
energy.
it seems that you're either one or the other gender predominantly in your previous incarnations.
Just depends
Mhm.
on which gender you're here to work on. So you may have had a lot of lifetimes where you were male, so you needed something to balance that out. So you'd need
Yeah.
to be feminine in the next
Hmm.
life.
Well,
For
that's what I'm saying is for the
yeah,
most part, I've been male,
yeah.
uh, except that for this one lifetime when I was a female and I died by a tragic accident in Mukachevo, Ukraine. And I knew about this like years ago, but I've done some recent work with the pendulum, with the map, with the
Hmm.
cards and everything. Pinpointed the exact spot where it happened, and it was a road accident where I got run over by a truck. And I was like, why? And I delved a little bit deeper with the
Hmm.
cards and everything. I figured, yes, I was drunk. And also, I didn't hear the
Ah,
truck. I didn't hear the truck because there was a railway crossing right
wow,
there.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Hmm.
why. So that explained it. And it was also a very short life where all I was basically just a housewife. But in
Hmm.
all of my previous incarnations that I know of, it's always been in Eastern Europe. Always,
Hmm.
Russia, Ukraine, and Bosnia and Czechoslovakia, where I personally was
And
born.
Yeah, and
that's
you had
where
that
we tie
banker
in too.
lifetime.
That's where Badalabar and I tie in because of
Yeah. Okay.
my
Yep.
background too.
You're
Because
yeah.
I'm Serbian and we're right from the Bosnia, Serbian, and most of my past lives that I remember is also in the same area that Dalabar is from, and I'm from the exact same area, like Tesla and my aunts and uncles, and in that area. That's my dad's side of the family, and I have
Yep. That's
many
Wow.
visions from that area, and being there. So I think that's where Dalabar and I tie in is the Bosnia area.
Hmm.
yeah, because that's where you're from. That's in the Vojvodina area, and the
Yeah,
Vojvodina
exactly.
area. That's where there's a detached settlement of Czechs that have been living there since the 13th century, actually,
Yeah,
in
Wow.
yeah.
Bosnia,
My
Wow.
family and
and
in my
on the border
family,
between Bosnia and Serbia.
yeah, and we still have the family a farm there that's since 1750 when we settled there. My family still owns it. My cousins and
Wow.
they still live there, so my family still are there, and
Wow.
most of my relatives. There's hardly anybody over here in Canada. Just my dad, my grandfather was the only one that came over, so the rest are
Wow.
still in
Well,
Europe.
there
So
and there's the
and we
DNA
traveled there
connection.
lots, yeah, and so
Yeah.
that's the area that I'm from, right, like
And
Delabar
it's
from that
interesting
area.
that kind of ties in with the Titanic because the survivors were rescued by a ship named the Carpathia. And where's Carpathia? Carpathia is in that region. That's Eastern
Hmm.
Europe.
Yep.
That's the Carpathian
Wow.
Mountains.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
So what do
That's
you
why.
all think? What do you all think about that concept then? The two prevalent views that all this is very linear and stacks on top of each other, and memories are carried from timeline to timeline to timeline, or the perspective that it's multidimensional and that
Well,
we're
it's a
experiencing
bit of
multiple realities and getting cumulative knowledge that way by
Hmm.
bringing what you can cross over if you get good at this now with your dreaming and
Yeah, I would
you
say
can.
nothing's really linear, really.
Hmm.
Everything's multidimensional and more of a 360 ball, just
Yeah.
Yeah.
like our energetic auras and our electromagnetic fields are a ball or
Yep.
an egg shape behind,
Yeah.
that we are. And it's actually within our fields that holds our records and holds our
Hmm.
memories and holds all this information. And when you get too used to it, we can access all of these past lives, all this information, and everything that has to do with it about ourselves in our computer database, by knowing how to move your assemblage point, it's called. And if you can move your assemblage point of awareness that comes out from the middle of your belly button, then that's the thread that attaches us to our reality and our
Yeah.
higher self. So
Me.
we actually use that to move around your energetic field to different placements, so you can go into your
Yeah.
computer to pull up all of your past lives, memories, visions. You can pull up pretty well anything when you get to know how to do it.
and it
Yeah,
ties
it's
in
kind
with
of like. Go ahead, Dad. I'm sorry,
it
Dad.
ties in with morphic resonance as well. In other words, the more people have done something on Earth, the easier it is for you to do something. And conversely, the more times you've learned something
Right.
in a past life, the easier it is to learn it in this life. And you can use the analogy of just like analyzing your own life. Like, for example, when
Yep.
you were a young kid, you learned how to walk, you learned how to not touch hot metal, you learned how to not fall down and stuff like that. When I had a stroke, I had to relearn some of these things, again.
Yeah.
But it was easier and it was much quicker than when I was like a little kid between 1 and 3 years old,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to walk and stuff like that. And one of the good examples of, what for me was a proof of a past life was the song, the Internationale, because I saw those lyrics, I think once or
Yeah.
twice, and I was able to like instantly memorize them for whatever weird reason. Back then, I didn't know the reason, but it was from a past life in Russia. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, even today, I can recite the whole
You,
thing.
the most
Right.
fascinating one that you talked about, Delabor, was the one where you were the casino
Yeah,
or banker. That
yeah,
was fascinating.
Uh-huh.
hmm
I
yeah,
mean, to actually
yeah.
know, and
Yeah,
then
where as a little kid, I was using nonsense words that were actually like Bosnian accounting and banking terms, which
Yeah. See the
is totally
Bosnian thing again. Little kids.
totally off the
yeah,
wall. Which
yeah,
and they're not similar to Czech words, by the way. They don't have any like
yeah.
other.
No, because
So
I do everybody. We use the word sponduli. So actually, I grew
Mhm.
up with
Mhm.
Serbian and that thing. So for we had all kinds of different words that I grew up with.
mhm.
So
Mm-hmm.
something else too for past lives that indication, and people of course will go with understand this is the deja vu experience or feeling that everybody gets
Yes.
and what that
Yes.
is.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So, you just have to think of that deja vu because it makes you stop and hold your breath and stop for a moment and think, I've done this before. That exact same, whatever it was. And so you have to think, well, when did I do this? And it's usually not this life or this present experience. It's usually something that you're feeling from a past or past experience or past that you're bringing that exact same feeling or emotion or same thing over. So I mean, deja vu experiences, that's
Mhm.
right there
Yeah,
for
and
me,
I
an
think Mary
indication of,
Mansfield is pretty much confirming that, where you have these brief flashes of intuition, like I've done this before.
Mm-hmm.
That's also a good indication, and
Mm-hmm.
that means by this coming to the foray of your attention span, that means that that's something that you should be concentrating on. That's something that you have yet to either relearn or learn better than you did in the past.
Mhm.
That's something
Mhm.
you got to work on. And if you have past lives that are not coming into the foray of your consciousness, that means you can just ignore them. You've learned your lessons from that time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've learned too
Yep.
is that it's kind of like dreaming, like when we set the intent to meet each other in the astral. When we set that intent
that's right.
to have a dream experience together, I can now set the intent that I want to visit a certain timeline that I've seen or a certain experience and I can actually go there now at will. There's been numerous times where I've bounced back to Greece just because I love it, or I've
Yeah,
bounced back to a
exactly.
certain lifetime that I was having with someone or a group of people that I enjoyed having, and I'll say I'm going to go on a vacation tonight. I'm going to go visit that timeline,
Mm-hmm.
and I can actually, and it's not a fantasy because I'm actually able to. Well, it's like a lucid dream
You're
because I'm
lucid
able.
dreaming. Yeah,
Yeah,
You're
it's like lucid
connected,
dreaming.
yeah,
Teresa. The
because you're
bottom
in.
line is you are
Yeah.
connected, and you're tapped in, tuned in somehow, and you're able to get the
Yeah.
information. And you
Yeah.
give me just enough for me to find,
Yeah.
Well, and
corroborating.
just think about what happens when we do sleep and we do dream. So nobody
Mhm.
Oh
really
yeah,
knows. So,
Yeah.
once you're
Mhm.
you're dreaming, what are you doing? So part of
you're
it
in the
is,
etheric realms.
and you're going to other places, other
Yeah.
timelines,
Sure.
other
That's right.
incarnations, other fractals of yourself, which
Yep.
are all what people think are your part of your higher
Your
self
your
and
body's
your higher
resting, and your
self.
mind's going, I don't want to be here.
That's
I got
right.
things
And
to do.
so, and this is why, and when
Yeah.
you wake up, you don't
Yeah.
remember what you've done. And this is why the
Right.
practice of lucid dreaming and astral
Mhm.
projecting and everything's so important, because what
Mhm.
lucid dreaming is that you wake up in your dream and you
And you
have total
realize you're
consciousness and
dreaming.
awareness of
Yep.
that reality. And like
Mhm.
Teresa said, you can then get used of actually dictating about which life you
Mhm.
want to go to, which experience you want to redo, where you want to go, and you can have control in your dream
And you
world.
can
And
play out
that's the
any
whole.
scenario you want to
Yeah,
play out.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's why.
exactly.
That's
And
why
go
you
back
have.
many times. You know.
Yeah.
That's why you have dreams where you're in like an old house or a house that you used to live in, and you discover a different room. That's actually symbolic of the structure or architecture of your mind, and it ties in with what you were saying. The dream consciousness versus waking consciousness. To say that I am home is kind of a general term, because I could be right here, or I could be in the kitchen, or I could be in the bathroom, or whatever. It's just
Mhm.
going into a different room of your mind, which means
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
necessarily
Yep.
changing your consciousness, but just shifting your consciousness to a different area of
Right.
your mind.
Right.
That's right. And we do it constantly. It doesn't have to be in
Yeah.
complete dreaming. It can be
Right.
daydreaming. That's the
Yeah.
most common thing for
Those are
children,
Hmm.
right?
powerful.
The most
Yes.
common thing for children is to shift during just the wakefulness and in your
Yeah.
Hmm.
daydreaming, and you're doing the exact same thing and shifting to other consciousness or realities, or trying to grasp other information from
Mhm.
from yourself.
Hmm.
And
Now,
so,
here's the big question. How does it help us heal? Now, we know that there's a lot of things on a emotional level.
well, why
Right?
do you always have to heal you? What's healing? Forget that.
No,
There
no,
is no
no. It is to
healing.
me. It is
We're
to
all just
me.
Oh, I
experiencing.
disagree. It's
Karen,
very
hold
healing.
on.
Oh,
Hold on,
yes.
It's gotta
Karen.
Poo
heal.
poo it all you want. Poo poo
Heal
it
all
all
you
you
want.
want.
Go ahead. If you
Karen,
keep that up, you'll be healing your whole life.
Karen, 3
What?
years ago, 4 years ago, before I even met any of you,
Yeah.
my skin was sagged. My eyes were puffed. I
Yeah.
was both mentally and physically beaten down. Okay? So during this transformation, I started having these experiences, and being able to go and visit these different timelines has helped me
Hmm.
to see, oh my gosh, I've gotten better at this, or I'm actually, oh, I can go visit this and see what was I not doing over here, that what am I doing over
I
here
think you're
that's so
clearing
right?
karma.
It's so right, you're
Hmm.
clearing karma, but you're also being
Which
Karma.
is
able
a form of
to meet
healing.
yourself
Mm-hmm.
in a
Karma.
much more healthy environment. And then you can start thinking of yourself in this reality as, well, wait a minute, I know I'm healthy in these three realities. I can find out how they're working with herbs. There's so much I've learned that I wouldn't normally know. And I hadn't learned it from
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah.
I didn't
So,
learn it
so
from
it tells
Google. I
me.
learned it
You
from
know what
visiting
it
these
tells me?
timelines.
But what it tells me, you're bent on life. This experience all has to do with healing and health.
Yes.
Most people, it's not. So that's what I'm saying. So for
Yeah.
you,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
it's a
her in
healing thing. All
particular,
everything you do,
individually,
in
yeah,
particular,
that's
everything
her
you
deal.
do has to do with some
Your
kind of
path
health
is
and
going to be
healing.
different.
Yeah, yeah. Mine never
Yeah.
has to do with health and healing. I've
No.
been
See,
So
healthy my
you
whole
can't,
life,
you
and
cannot
so
even fathom
and
or
so
even,
my whole thing is just period. It's about experiencing people. It's just experience, and each person's experience is different. That's all I'm saying. So yours will be
absolutely.
health,
Yep.
Laura's will be different. So it's
Absolutely.
all just about
Yeah.
experiencing. Period.
see, I would say,
Whatever you choose that to be.
I would say that for me, it's been most therapeutic in helping myself deconstruct Christianity, because one of the central tenets of Christianity
Yes.
is forgiveness of sins. And
Mm-hmm.
if you know what karma is and how it works, that there is no such thing as forgiveness of sins. You pay for every transgression, whether it's in
That's
this life
right.
or
Yes.
another life. You always
That's
pay for
right.
everything. You
That's
cannot
right.
escape karma, and you do
Yes, you
you
do.
can make up for it with dharma and stuff like that, but
Yep.
karma will always get you.
That's
and
right.
and
And
I've
you
had
got to clear that karma and you
many
got to get past it.
confirmations. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to get past it. I've had many
Or you
confirmations.
don't
Like
grow, you don't expand.
in this one life that I had, I was an ardent communist, and I was working in the offices of Kerensky, who was the Minister of the Interior under Lenin, and I was a firm believer in communism, and that's why I was punished by
Yeah.
being born in this life and suffering under communism in Czechoslovakia. So, what comes around goes around, literally. And that lifetime was confirmed for me in my first regression, where when I recounted this to the psychotherapist, she
Mm-hmm.
reached behind her without even looking at a book called Russian History of Russia or something, opened it without even looking to page 212 and said, read this.
That's great.
And it was exactly what I had told her, which was
Yeah.
proof positive for me and confirmation that what I had experienced and recounted
Right.
was 100% for real.
Yeah. And no one's trying to sit here and
And
prove
you know what?
anything to anybody.
You
All
know
No, you
what
we
I
got to
just
prove it
know,
thought of?
yourself.
The
yeah, we know.
consistency, Teresa, I just thought of has
Yeah.
to do with like the simulation and the consistency in the scripts, okay? Because lifetime after lifetime, because even this one, you talked about health, and then the past one, you were a nurse and all of that stuff. Where if I look at all my lives and everything, mine have nothing to do with health. Even in this life, it's the last thing I would pick would be healthcare. I can't stand it. I can't stand hospitals. Yet mine to life's over all my lifetimes have to do with business, merchants, high spiritual things, crystals, computers. I always the same lifetime. Even Atlantis, I'm programming crystals and programming and building and a master builder, but nothing to do with healthcare or health, or nothing to do with illness or sickness. So you're right,
Well,
and
in this,
I don't think I've ever had an incarnation where that was my
yeah,
bent.
in this
If you know what I mean.
lifetime,
Same here.
Yeah.
Even this
And that's
lifetime, I would never go
Yeah.
near
that's
that even.
specific and
in
your own path to walk. So the
Yeah.
whatever
Well,
your soul's here to do,
Yeah.
you're doing it. Yeah.
and I don't think it matters lifetime after lifetime. It's always the same
I
for me.
Well, that's interesting, don't you think?
That's part of the script. My script doesn't
what are
vary
you repeating?
much,
Right.
right? My same scripts over and over, but just a
Right.
variance a little bit.
Yeah,
So
Yes,
that's
that
right.
makes
correct.
sense.
That is
yes,
correct.
that's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
So
in
no
this
wonder. Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
Don't
incarnation,
ask me to look after you, anybody.
Yeah. Mhm.
I need a band-aid, Karen. I need a
I
band-aid.
could do that,
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
but don't show me blood. I'll faint.
Oh, you'll faint. Okay.
Yeah, I
I
don't like
used
it
to be
either.
like that. Not anymore. I'm over
yeah.
it now.
Now,
There's my
what's
own. I
another
cut my
thing that's
thumb, my finger once, and I fainted.
A lot of people are like that. A lot of people have that.
another thing that I find interesting is after that ship goes down in 1944 at Normandy, I'm born in 1960, so not that long of a period. And my parents served in World War II. My dad was at Iwo Jima. My mom worked for American Red Cross. They were all involved in World War II activities. But then I come along
See,
in
but then again, Red Cross, healthcare, all that stuff. Now, we're prepared. My family was in the wars and all that too, but not in healthcare and stuff. Guess what? Was a spy and more intelligence. See,
And
my
in
family
my
were all in the war, in air, military, Air Force, but all in high intelligence.
But I went on in this lifetime. I had a draw at age 17 to join the U.S. Navy or the United States Coast Guard. And I really wanted to be in the Navy or the Coast Guard. My parents were just hell-bent against it. I said, how about Easter SEALs, And they're like, or no, I was working for Easter SEALs as a volunteer and Special Olympics. But I wanted to go into the Peace Corps when they told me I couldn't go into the Navy. And they were like, absolutely, positively not. And like, folks, you listen to your parents, or at least I did in the 1970s. So I didn't cross them. But I ended up, with that auxiliary Coast Guard unit that my family was involved with in their boating club. And I got involved with them after, I couldn't serve discharge, for bad congenital disc disease or something. But anyway, so Coast Guard Auxiliary was fun, and I've always wanted to be in that type of role. And so even working with the American Red Cross, even if it was information systems, I was still a volunteer in disaster relief. I worked on that train that derailed in DC, emergency relief for that, and volunteer for different clinics and centers around the country in between other stuff. So yeah, you're right. I'm here because every time, I guess in my past lives, it's all been about serving in some capacity, whether it be as a spiritual healer or as a shaman or as a modern nursing. But I'm also here for my own health to cure. And that's why I wanted to say to folks, the point that I was trying to make is that by visiting I think Trina tells her interesting story about how she goes back and meets herself in another timeline where she's very healthy and actually gets a healing from that on a physical issue. So what I'm saying is if you take the time and really find a way to do this, like I have, you can find yourself and heal yourself through that experience.
It helps you
Oh, sure.
understand yourself. It
Sure.
really does. It's like,
Mhm.
wow,
Uh-huh.
things just start making sense.
Right.
Where'd all these leadership skills come from? How was
Yeah.
I able to make all this stuff happen and
Uh-huh.
juggle this and do that? Because I had those skills. And here's a good example. I'm going to use my sister really quick. I hope you
Mhm.
don't mind, Kelly, because I know you're listening. But my sister is fascinated with anything that has to do with recording, records, artists, all of that. And she may have some kind of lifetime where she was either a musician or a producer of that kind of stuff, and she's fascinated by it. She just picked up a guitar and started playing the guitar like she'd been doing it forever. She just self-taught. And it's those kind of things that happens in your life where you're like, wow, why is this happening? It gives you a better understanding of why these things are happening and where those skills and attributes come from and how do they work in your own life. And she's
Mhm.
fascinated with anything that has to do with any artist. She can tell you any song from the 60s, 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s era. I think she even goes back to jazz and all kinds of different types of music, but she's fascinated by music.
Mhm.
And she knows
Huh.
everything about music. So
Yeah.
it just goes to show you those are the kinds of things that, when you ask yourself, oh, why do I have this? Start investigating, start looking into
Yeah.
that, see what's triggering you.
And it's
And
all for
then
one.
you'll
It's all about one thing: to know thyself.
Mhm.
exactly.
So
That's
Oh,
that's what it's
exactly
absolutely.
about.
right.
It's just all
Definitely.
about
And
to
it's to
know thyself.
remember who you are. When you're in the body, you have amnesia. You don't know crap.
You don't
It's
even know
not
what happened 2 days ago.
exactly,
You can't
exactly.
recount that
Yeah.
second by second.
Yeah, exactly. But at least it gives you an understanding of why you're thinking of these things or why you
Mhm.
have these skills. And then it makes sense. Things click and you're just like, wow, okay.
What do you
It
think, Brian? What do you think about all this?
Um, I know you can find out, like, someone suffering from depression and they don't know why. They can go back
uh-huh.
into a past life and find out actually when that first time they were depressed happened. And if you can
Hmm.
heal that, guess what? It'll transgress through all them other lives that you might have
Right.
had been
Yeah,
Huh.
good
depressed.
point.
And the next thing you
Excellent.
know, you're coming back now and you're not depressed. So it
Hmm.
is important to go
Mhm.
back to past life stuff because you'll see there's cycles. You can learn how to
Hmm.
break cycles. Some
Hmm.
cycles are
Like
good, some
birthmarks
cycles are
and things
bad.
like that. Birthmarks on your body. Sometimes
Exactly.
those are indicators of a death. You could have been stabbed, shot. I mean, how many ways can you die? But you might have a birthmark. And I think Smoking and G Sharp mentioned this. That carries over into the next lifetime. And
Mhm.
then you
Yes.
wonder why. And come to
Yes.
find out later, you're connected. It's connected.
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe that's
True.
something you set yourself up with so that you can discover that, you know?
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And if it,
Brian, do you find
Could
that
possibly.
does Jim end up? I guess the question is, does Jim, when he regresses people, do that as part of an overall healing program, where he's helping them with other things as well? Because I know he has a counselor.
Uh, right. Usually his regressions, they usually last about an hour. This past one, we only was able to make it through 2 lives because
Hmm.
there was so much. Well, did three. He only touched on one, and that one was basically I was one of the few lives like Delbar that I was a female and I was a gardener. That's why I know I just picked up gardening this lifetime and just
You have
got a
an
green thumb.
amazing
But I
garden.
did that.
Yeah.
You do. I
Yeah,
just can't
I'd done
believe the
that in a
stuff you pull
previous
out.
lifetime.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's good
But
proof right
Incredible.
most of
there.
mine has been on being a male. And like I said, I've fought in several wars. and the last one being World War II.
Wow.
That's the one that I really don't like talking about, because that one, I was a very dark person in that lifetime.
Yep. Yep. And look at you now. You're
and
the
that's everything
opposite. Yeah, you're balancing out that previous lifetime with a lifetime of, I would say, being a value, servitude, that kind of a thing. You know, it brings that into play. So you're making up for balancing out the energy that you had where you were taking lives and the dark energy and all of that. Now you have the absolute polar opposite of it in this lifetime. And that's to balance your energies out. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, you're just balancing your energies.
Yeah. Well, also in that lifetime, I learned before I did pass away that, you know, what I did was wrong, and I didn't want to be that person again. So I already made that decision in that lifetime that I did not want to be that person.
See, I kind of disagree with the right and wrong part of it. I just think it is what it is, and there is no right or wrong. It's just an experience you chose to live and understand and live through for the polarity of it. And then you decided this time, I don't want to be that way. I need the polar opposite of it to have the balance. Yeah.
The difference between right and wrong is it
everybody's
pleasant or is it unpleasant?
Yeah,
the difference
everybody's
between right
had a
and
past
wrong.
life where they were not a nice person.
Yeah, I think it's both ways, because without those, you have no movement, right?
There's no expansion.
No movement without both
no
sides.
growth.
So I think we all experience both.
Yeah.
You know,
like I said, like I wanted to say, the difference between right and wrong is pleasant versus non-pleasant, and it's the same way with health.
Perception.
The difference between healthy and non-healthy is if you feel good or you don't.
Feel good. It's
That's
polarity.
It's real simple.
Duality. Yep, it is.
Real simple.
Is very simple. Yes, it is. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And something that I always thought confirmed past lives and incarnations, of course, you know, just because we're talking about it, is the child prodigy thing. You know, when you have small children that are born, and, you know, there's so many of them that at 2 years old, you know, this one little girl, I remember that she was an artist, and at 2, she could paint like she was an adult, and like her paintings go for
or these prodigies.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, child prodigies. Well, that comes from somewhere. You know, 2 years old, they're playing the piano like they've been playing for their whole life. So you have children that have this residual remembrance and skills, and they happen to be able to tap into that in this life with no barrier, no forgetting. They've remembered the whole thing for some reason. Obviously, right? Because I mean, at 2 years old or 3 or whatever, you know, they don't, you know, learn that within those few months from the baby to, you know. So
you just come in, it sticks with you.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Quick question for Lori. You have described, which I thought would be which I thought was like, that's it. That's it. You describe the role of the oversoul, of your higher self, in managing how to pull out various pieces of information to expand self from these lessons and experiences learned in these other. You see that as a function of your higher self. So basically, you're using the Akashic record, which is really the memory, the DNA memory, and memory of all these experiences. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I think that the oversoul, if you want to call it the oversoul, everybody has so many different definitions about it, but the part of you that is always in spirit, that controls the lifetimes, is got a line on each lifetime you're living. So consistently, consecutively, whatever your lifetimes are, and that connection to those lifetimes is directed by the oversoul. So
it's just like a different username that you have on different platforms. You're still the same user, which I would call root. You're still
root, there you go.
But
that's a good way to put it.
Different username on Skype, different username on Google, different username on whatever.
But you're still the user.
But she's the group administrator.
Yeah, there you go.
We are the group administrator of our own group, so we're pulling in what we need when we need it for a specific.
That's like if you ever had something just pop into your mind. Like I can remember a couple of times where I was doing something and I was going to do something I really shouldn't have. And I heard that voice. I felt, to me, that was the oversoul going, don't do that. You probably shouldn't do that. I mean, you could, but you probably shouldn't do that. And then you stop and then you realize, oh God, if I'd have done that, I probably would not be here right now. You know, I mean,
we've even done that with each other because we have, if I only showed you a fraction, but there's a lot more. And I've got over 50% in the same timeline as Lori. So we've had a relationship in one way or the other, over 50% of the ones that I've experienced. And I've seen Karen, I've seen Trina, I've seen, so don't get me wrong, I've seen all of you in these different families, but it's just Lori and I connect a lot. And so when we are having a discussion and she says, I'm about to do this, and this is how I feel, I might go, oh, remember that time when? Or I'll nudge her to remember something in a timeline where it's like, you are strong because of what you went through during that campaign.
That's a good reminder.
As Philip. And she'll go, oh, that's right. I did that. And so that's right. I am strong. I can do that. So we're able to do that with each other based on some of these timeline memories. We build each other up so that you can make a choice to do something in a certain way because of the memory you've had about. So you never stop learning from your past lives.
No,
you don't have to let them go. In fact, when you can remember details, sometimes the details are really helpful.
There's no reason to let them go. They don't go anywhere.
Yeah, you want to use it.
They're always with you. They never leave.
Yeah,
no, but I hear people saying that, and it's like, no, you don't want to let part of yourself go.
No, it just helps you better understand yourself today and the things that you're dealing with and the issues that have popped up in previous lifetimes. Have you managed or been able to get through those and change the outcome? If you're changing the outcome and growing from it, then you're expanding and you're moving forward. If you're staying in the same rut, doing the same things lifetime after lifetime, you're just in a cyclical motion where you're just going to be doing it all the time. But there's got to be a way when you get to a certain point, and that is you've released a lot of the karma and you're able to move on to something more. This is an earth school. We're here to learn. We're here to grow. We're here to do duality and polarity and all of that. But once that's done, what's next? That's what I'm asking. Those are the questions I want to know about. Okay, good so point. I'm here cleaning up some karma. What's next? Whatever you want.
Good point.
Yeah, if you can recognize something in this.
It's not a prison planet. You're here by choice. And by choice, you can get yourself out. That's how I see it.
Yes. I agree.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Now, if you can see something, here's something else. If you could see something in this current situation, this current incarnation of something that isn't going right between you and, say, a certain person, and you recognize that energy, and you go, oh, I know who this was. I know who this was in another lifetime.
Yeah.
And in that lifetime, I killed the son of a bitch. But in this lifetime, I can walk away.
Right.
That's the moral lesson, of course. But tying in with what Lori said, you have to recognize what this place is. And the one dominant characteristic that this place has is imperfection.
That's right.
Okay? And the main mistake that people make is the struggle for utopia. It's utopianism. In other words, some guy somewhere says everybody should be living like this. Okay.
No.
And there is only one right way to live. Okay.
No.
That's wrong. That's wrong. Of course, because there is no one right way to live.
Nope.
So, the main lesson we should take from this is that instead of dealing with equations that are equalities, we should be dealing more with inequalities,
right?
Because we live in a supremely imperfect place.
And accepting yourself, I think, is a big one. Once you accept yourself and you love yourself for all of your imperfections.
I like what Max is saying. That is the challenge, to feel at peace wherever you are, whatever is going on. Then you're in control.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
pretty much.
Yep.
I lost the key. Turn off. Thank you.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Good.
Well, guys, we're coming to
Yes,
an
we have
hour
some
and a half.
announcements.
Yep, let's go
Yeah.
ahead and get to the announcements. But fascinating subject. I could talk about it all night.
Absolutely.
We can talk more next time because
Sure, yes, and there'll be
Yes.
a
Oh,
second
way
part.
more past lives to talk about and
Oh,
things.
We'll
good.
that
talk
go on
about
for
it right
sure.
here. Okay.
Yes.
So, first of all, thank you, everyone. And
Yeah.
part 2 is coming up to this discussion, and we've talked to Sophia, and I don't know if she's still here because it's been a while, but Sophia Rasmussen, our psychic and friend, good sister, when she gets some things settled, she's going to come on probably within a couple weeks from now and help us talk about past life regressions, how regressions are handled, maybe do a read, some psychic reading. We have to talk to her to flesh it out, but she will be with us, Karen, for another part of this. And then next week, folks, is Lori's birthday.
Yay.
And our lioness will be celebrating with family and friends. So we're going to take some time off next Friday and just play an encore of one of our previous programs. There won't be a live chat room or anything like that, but if you want something to watch, we'll just post something out there and folks can watch.
Yep.
The week after that, we have a special treat. Our friend Mark Bright, the joyologist from Australia, is coming back online with Jules at a live country music muster to talk to us about that wonderful program that he has set up at the Serpentine Ridge, which is a conscious living healing retreat center that he's built out on this property on sacred land there in Australia, as well as the Eco Climate Crusaders youth group that he has set up that is also helped out there at the Ridge. They plant trees and they do healing and drum circles and you name it. He's going to show you how he's built out this retreat center.
I love Mark. Boy, you always feel really like jazzed and energized after being around him because he's happy days.
Yes,
it's all happy days. Life is good.
That's right. And he uses that body painting that he does. It's all part of it.
And
some of the Australian music, everything. Yeah. Then the following week will be our friend Musgrave Griffin. We've pulled together a program with her, and it's the Musgrave Griffin Buckhorn Homestead Project, featuring a boots on the ground tour of their historical land restoration successes to date and crops, and we'll also be doing something special on that show for everybody.
Yes,
but that's
going to learn a lot about the farm.
A prize.
Yeah,
awesome.
Sustainable living, and homesteading, and how you make your dreams.
They're doing some amazing things on that property. Yeah,
right.
And there's an amazing history with it as well. So you'll see a video on that.
Yeah. So we're really excited about having them on.
Yeah, it'll be
that
fun.
Fills up the whole schedule, and then spills over into September.
Yeah,
because that'll be September 2nd. Right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
when Jeannie and Michael come on. So we're just we had a preview with Jeannie the other day. She was showing us the property. We have all kinds of photographs, but it's different when you actually see her.
Yeah. A lot of history with that property.
Yeah,
some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Can't wait to share that with you.
Where's that?
Well, you'll tune in and find out. It's central northern Arkansas, near the Missouri border line.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
80,
how many acres?
80.
Oh, they're on 80?
80 acres.
So that's up in the Ozarks.
Yeah.
Yes,
correct.
it is.
That is correct.
We're the home of the Osage Indian troops, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Pony Express.
Oh,
that's right. There's a trail that goes right through her property that was the Pony Express. So it'll be fascinating. We're really stoked about it. Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be it.
That's
heck yeah.
Awesome.
So that'll be fun. So so we're pretty full up for the rest. So we're just going to take a break. We've done like 10 or 11 shows straight since Lori came back, and we came back from that break that we had to take. And so this gives her an opportunity to spend some time with her family for her birthday. And, I wish I was there, there in reality to help celebrate it.
We'll get together someday soon. You betcha.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have some fun.
Anybody have any other questions or anything you'd like to add? Or
I just want to thank everybody for coming in. Everybody in chat, everyone who's watching. Like and subscribe, everybody. Click the like button. Share it out with some friends of yours. We're really starting to get into all this stuff, and just sharing what we know to be true for ourselves. And none of us are saying that this is true for everyone. This is our own personal truth, and we're just simply sharing it with you to just give you a different perspective. And so I hope it helps. Yep. Thanks, Mary Wins.
Awesome. Is Max doing a show tonight, or
not sure, but it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah,
check your thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's it.
Hey, everybody.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. And till next, we'll see you in a couple of weeks live. We'll see you then with the Mark Bright. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend and enjoy life.
Bye-bye.
Peace, love, and chicken grease. Is that how? I don't know.
Something like that.
I miss Steve Stone. He used to say that all the time. See y'all later.
All right.
Take care, everyone. Bye.